So it looks like the world isn't quite as crazy as we thought. For example, there's this headline: England's National Health Service bans puberty blockers for kids. Says puberty blockers banned for kids because there's not enough evidence of safety, England's National Health Service said. Oh, so you mean the medical experiments designed by lunatics don't have enough evidence of safety? How surprising. But it had something to do with this: 1,000 families to sue Tavistock Gender Service. The UK's only children's gender identity development service, run by Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, is to be sued by at least 1,000 families who alleged that their children were rushed into taking life-changing puberty-blocking drugs. As a result, they were facing, quote, physical and psychological permanent scarring that will last the rest of these victims' lives. That's alleged by the law firm involved. 1,000 families. So I guess they forgot about that whole do no harm thing. But it's not just England that's had a change of heart about this. Sweden as well. Sweden puts brakes on treatments for trans minors. And they were ahead of the curve on this stuff. Sweden, the first country to introduce legal gender reassignment, has begun restricting gender reassignment hormone treatments for minors. And the restrictions in Sweden actually started in 2021. And for some reason, none of the relevant institutions in North America, seem to pay any attention to this. They should have, because it's happening all over Europe. Increasing number of European nations adopt a more cautious approach to gender-affirming care among minors. And why would they do that? Let's see. Specifically, longitudinal data collected and analyzed by public health authorities in Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands, and England have concluded that the risk-benefit ratio of youth gender transition ranges from unknown to unfavorable. Now, I've maintained all along that, sex changes for children is a grotesque and insane idea. And it looks like these countries, they finally agree with me. Puberty blockers, or gonadotropin-releasing hormone analogs, is a class of drugs that suppresses sex hormones in adolescents by continually stimulating the pituitary gland. It will now only be available to children in limited ways, such as clinical trials, and I'm assuming that's for other medical conditions such as precocious puberty. The NHS's website said puberty blockers are not available to children and young people for gender incongruence or gender dysphoria because there is not enough evidence of safety and clinical effectiveness. It makes you wonder why they were doing it in the first place, because this statement actually makes it perfectly clear that it was not being done using scientific evidence. They state it clearly right here. Let's see. NHS England had previously ordered the London-based gender identity clinic at the Tavistock and Portman Trust to shut its doors amid safety concerns. That's the clinic that was being sued by 1,000 families. Let's see. A 2023 analysis from the University of Essex found that 1/3 of the youth with gender dysphoria experienced a decline in mental health after taking puberty blockers. And it really is just astonishing and tragic that, given from the start the lack of evidence, that this was allowed to happen at all. Because while they're conducting what is frankly just a giant experiment, young lives have been damaged irreversibly in many cases, up until the point where they had to stop because they realized it's actually just causing harm. Which frankly, I don't think you ever needed to be an expert to predict that outcome. Here, Swedish doctors at a top medical school released a systemic review of all available medical literature on providing puberty blockers to children and said its use for treating gender dysphoria should be considered experimental. Well, that's not what the woke activists have been telling us. I mean, obviously it has been. I've been saying that for years now. This is a giant experiment. But that's not what the experts have been telling us. Well, the word expert's really taken a beating the last few years, hasn't it? Well, this Swedish doctor had something to say about it. What did he say? Quote, what we call GnRH treatment is chemical castration, and it can affect mental health in an unintended, undesirable way. So it's very important that the patient and patient's family are informed about this. I'm very worried about it, and I think I'm not alone in that. He added about his concerns of GnRH for children, puberty blockers. So given the fact that they're admitting now at this point that this is all experimental, in other words, it's all just a big experiment on a generation of children, and I would include gender theory, woke gender theory that's being pushed in schools right now in that experiment. But it makes you wonder, how did all of this start in the first place? They clearly didn't know anything, and that's been obvious all along. And on top of all of this, we've just had the WPATH files. I've just made a video on this, by the way, that you can watch, and please subscribe to the channel and then watch it. But it's files that were leaked from the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. And what we see in these internal communications and Zoom meetings is that they're just making it up as they go along. I'm not kidding. So given all that, how did this pseudoscientific nonsense gain so much power? Well, it happened because of the far left takeover of seemingly every institution. Universities, psychologist associations, medical associations, across the board. All of the places that we assumed were evidence-based and could be trusted. Well, it turns out that they can't. And if you don't take anything that they have to say that touches on anything that might be considered politically sensitive, if you don't take that with a giant grain of salt, you're crazy. I mean, they've already proven that they're crazy, but what you do, I guess that's up to you. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.